Air Force chief to warn India of a full-scale war should tensions between the two sides continue to soar. Marshal Suhail Aman has called on New Delhi to show restraint, stressing that the Pakistani army knows well how to deal with India if necessary.
There are no indications that if the two countries are really willing to de-escalate the situation, both countries are nuclear power, and any strategic miscalculation can lead to a huge catastrophe between the two countries.
The fire exchange in Kashmir comes a day after the mutilated body of an Indian soldier and two others were found in the Indian side of the region. The Indian Army says it carried out the shelling in response to the deaths of its troops. The two countries have also engaged in expulsion of diplomats as a result of their unending dispute. India earlier expelled a Pakistani diplomat on charges of espionage, a move to which Islamabad later responded in kind. The Pakistani Foreign Ministry recently accused 8 Indian embassy staffers of fabricating evidence to portray Islamabad as a stated sponsor of terrorism. The two arch-enemies have been exchanging heavy fire since the long-standing dispute over Kashmir heightened in September. The flare-up has killed dozens of soldiers and civilians on both sides. Back then, militants raided an Indian military base, killing nearly 20 soldiers. The Indian Army condemned the ambush and blamed it on Pakistan. Islamabad, however, has strongly denied any involvement in the attack. In addition to keeping an eye on Pakistan, India has had to crack down on a popular movement in Kashmir, where many people are seeking independence from New Delhi or a merger with Pakistan. The heavy-handed clampdown has claimed the lives of tens of thousands of people in the Himalayan region since 1989. Kashmir is divided between India and Pakistan. Both countries claim the region in full, and they have fought 2 wars over it in 1947 and 1965. Despite international concerns over the conflict, the two sides have thus far failed to come up with a lasting solution to the crisis. Escalation in tensions between the two nuclear rivals can further polarize the region, drawing in other players, including China and the US, into the furor, with unfathomable consequences for the entire region and beyond.
Our guest joining us for this edition of the debate, investigative journalist Nida Ahmad, joins us from Islamabad. We have journalist and political commentator Shaban Saxena, who joins us from Sao Paulo. I'd like to start with you, Shaban Saxena. We have this most recent incident, Indian fire killing 12 civilians and 3 soldiers. And now the warning. Pakistan's Air Force chief warning India against escalating the dispute over Kashmir into full-scale war, urging New Delhi to exercise restraint. Is it Pakistan that has to show restraint, or India, or both?
In my opinion, both the countries have to show some restraint, and I think at this stage, anyone who talks about a full-scale war between India and Pakistan, both the countries who have nuclear weapons, I think is talking irresponsibly. A war is not a possibility. If a war breaks out between India and Pakistan, a full-scale war, we can just imagine the catastrophe for both the countries and for the entire region. A nuclear war is not a possibility, and we should not even talk about it. Having said that, the India-Pakistan relations have always followed a pattern. The countries suddenly talk sometimes about peace, then there's a terrorist attack in some part of India or in Kashmir, and there's escalation in tension at the border, and it comes down after some weeks or months of posturing and violence at the border, and the countries are back to talks. So this is the pattern which has been going on for many, many years, for many decades, and I can see this pattern happening again. So I'm hopeful that this posturing, this fighting at the border will finish soon, and the countries will be back to talking about peace.
Nida Ahmad, we're looking at recent incidents that involved India, and it was quite alarming the way that this news came about, and the detail was the fact that Indian submarine to have been spotted in Pakistani waters, and for the Pakistani, I guess, Navy to have steered that submarine out of its territory. What is your reaction upon that piece of news, and what, if indeed it's authentic, which by all means it seems to be, what is India trying to do by making such a move? Because we're looking at the escalation to really reach crisis level now based on it being continuous in the past months.
Well, the incident of submarine and over the past few weeks, the entire exchange of fire on line of control in Indian occupied Kashmir and Azad Kashmir has been related in many ways. However, the situation at the moment is not just an isolated incident that resulted from something happening in Indian occupied Kashmir. It starts from the way Modi started his election rhetoric, and he is trying to translate his fascist rhetoric into reality. He is speaking to his electorate. He cannot handle the issues that are facing him in India. The most recent crisis of incompetence is demonetization, which everybody is talking about globally. Indian rupee is crashing significantly over the past few weeks. So these things have to be distracted, and Modi is unable to handle it. He and his party always takes refuge in Hindutva and the kind of rhetoric that we have been seeing coming. The second related development is that this tight embrace with United States of India and Pakistan's shift towards China, and this China-Pakistan economic corridor in which Iran is likely to join, and discussions are already underway. That's really not going well with Indian mindset at the moment at the helm. Over the years, Kashmir issue has been there since 1948, and Indians have decided not to talk about it as if it doesn't exist. But that has been the only issue between Pakistan and India until Modi tested the nuclear weapons, and the entire matrix of the relations and tensions changed. Exactly, there is no reason to talk about war. The messages came right after Modi was elected to power and his inauguration, in which Nawaz Sharif attended. Beyond that, there has been a significant hawkish tone adopted by its foreign minister, its national security advisor, its minister of defense, and of course the prime minister. The clear indication that we are going to pump up any separatist in Balochistan is something beyond the disputed state of Jammu and Kashmir. That is on UN agenda. To sum it up all, I think India is working towards its cold start doctrine. They are trying to soften the targets along line of control, and probably in March or April there is likelihood of a full-scale war which will start initially in Kashmir, and that's the way weapon acquisition, the drills in India, and the mood in India shows to be going that way.
Do you agree with that, Shaban Saxena, what Naveed Ahmed said there, that war is imminent?
No, I don't agree at all, and I'm really disappointed with his tone and his rhetoric. And this is one big problem between India and Pakistan. Whenever there's a discussion, it turns into some kind of slanging match between speakers and panelists, and I really don't want to do that. I think as far as I don't speak for the government of India. They're quite capable of defending themselves. I speak as an independent analyst and as a journalist. And to say that there's going to be a war, as I said earlier, is very, very irresponsible. There will not be any war. India is a different country. Of course, we have fought 2 wars or 3 wars before, but India is a different country now. The people of India have different aspirations and expectations from the government. Nobody in India is looking at war. People in India are looking at economic growth. They're looking at jobs. They're looking at making innovations. They're trying to make India a better country. To talk of war and talk of this kind of rhetoric is really, really very irresponsible and disappointing. And Mr. Ahmed made some very, very serious allegations. And there are some factual inaccuracies in what he said. But to be fair to the government of India, and I want to make it clear that I don't speak for the government here, Indian government has tried, not just this government, also the past governments have tried to improve relations with Pakistan. And he said that nothing has happened on the Kashmir issue. I just want to remind him that in 1972, after the war of 1971, India and Pakistan signed a major agreement called Shimla Agreement, and the 2 countries agreed to the line of control in Kashmir and to try to resolve the issues peacefully. And I think that is a model for both the countries to try to resolve this issue peacefully, politically, and diplomatically. To talk about war and talk about annihilation is not really a good way forward.
Naveed Ahmed.
I don't want to make it a point-scoring match, but this gentleman should read the newspapers of India and go through the statements that all these Ajwal and others have been giving. I don't speak for government of Pakistan, of course, but the reality is you don't want to say it, because the world is trying to look at this region in a different way than you want to see, and you want to portray Pakistan or some other countries. The reality is that India's rhetoric over the past at least 3 years has been towards the extent that there should not be any talks with Pakistan. There should not be even any sporting activity with Pakistan. Just the talk of people-to-people relationship in the absence of state-to-state diplomacy will not work. And the incidents that you have quoted itself, like the submarines and the initiation of this war, yesterday an ambulance was attacked, a passenger bus was attacked in Neelam Valley, and 9 people died in that, 3 others died today. This is not really the trajectory of developments that you want to see back there in Brazil or in India or in New York. Indian attitude has been to portray that crow is white, everything is fine, and India is carrying the white flag, which of course it doesn't. And Modi, through his history, has not been one person who has spoken of peace at all. His statement on Balochistan is on the record. There's a thing called Google, you can try that and you will find it. As far as Shimla Accord is concerned, Shimla was very clear about the way forward. Has India adopted anything? They just don't want to talk about it. Shimla never said line of control is an international border. It's a disputed issue. Nobody wants to talk from the Indian side of Kashmir as a disputed issue. It's just that Pakistan occupied Kashmir, we want to annex it. That's not the way things will go ahead in future, no matter what India acquires domestically, indigenously, or from United States or its allies in the West.
Well, what is the statement that Naveed Ahmad you're talking about when you say Modi made on Balochistan? If you can say that, so then I could get a reaction from our guest there in Sao Paulo on that.
Modi expressed a vivid, open, straightforward support to any infiltration, any militancy in Pakistani province of Balochistan. And Balochistan is bordering Iran, and that's where Gwadar port is located, which is really a sore for Indian establishment. They thought that they will isolate Pakistan, but Pakistan is connecting China through Middle East and Europe through that.
Okay, your reaction to that statement there by Modi on Balochistan?
Yeah, I think Mr. Modi made the statement on the Day of Independence, speech from Red Fort, and I would like to reiterate again that I don't speak for the government. I'm speaking here as a journalist, and I think as an analyst I can say what Mr. Modi was trying to make a point, that when Pakistan has serious problem for Balochistan in its own backyard, why are they trying to break up the issue of Kashmir again and again? And I think it's not really, it doesn't help Pakistan. I mean, it doesn't help any Pakistani analyst or government to always blame India for all their internal problems. I think Pakistan has to seriously look at what are the causes for the problems they have, domestic problems. They have to address those problems domestically, analyze them logically, and talk about in a sincere and serious fashion. Blaming India and to say that India is trying to break Pakistan, India is against Pakistan, India is making alliance with the United States to break Pakistan is really absurd. I mean, as far as I know, Pakistan has been a client state of the United States for a very long time, since independence. I mean, in the 1970s, 1980s, the whole Afghanistan war, what the role they played, the way ISI aligned with CIA, the whole creation of the jihadi terrorism, how Pakistan became a factory of jihadi terrorism across the world. This is a result of the nexus between US and Pakistan. And Pakistan, unfortunately, and I'm saying this really, this is a big tragedy, Pakistan is now paying a price for it, for getting involved in other people's war, for fighting war for America's behalf, of bringing all the terrorists from around the world, including Osama bin Laden, to Pakistan, giving them sanctuary, giving them resources. And what has happened today, there's an implosion inside Pakistan, and this is the result of wrong policies of Pakistani government, and it's not good enough. It's not enough to blame India and say Indian government is trying to do bad things to Pakistan. I think it's high time Pakistan made a very clear distinction between good terrorists and bad terrorists. You say the terrorists who go to India are good terrorists, and terrorists who are causing havoc inside Pakistan, including Balochistan, are bad terrorists. That doesn't work anymore. A terrorist is a terrorist, and Pakistan should identify this, recognize this, and try to address this problem in a sincere manner.
Well, Naveed Ahmad, let's make set the record straight here. I'm almost sure, if I may say so, that you're not promoting a war to occur between the two nations. I'm guessing that's not what you want. So what would be your solution to this in terms of any type of mediation that could happen? Do you think that the UN should come in? Do you think that some of the world powers, we can talk about China or the US, should intervene? How should this thing be resolved? Unless war, you think, is the answer to this?
Well, first of all, again, Mr. Modi, as long as he's in power and the hawks that he has around him are not going to answer any such question from international community. Over the past 3 years since he came, Pakistan has used international fora, according to my information and public information, and India has refused to continue the discussion on composite dialogue or even a secretary level talks to start the talks. I think this is where the world needs to look. Mr. Modi has an agenda. He has a particular mindset. His history of crimes and genocide and massacres in Gujarat cannot be forgotten. The same person was not allowed to enter United States till 2005 until 2012 in the UK. And 1 or 2 cases are still in Indian courts against him. That man is not the one who can bring peace. On this end, Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif has welcomed him in his home in Lahore on the wedding of his granddaughter. He was flying from Afghanistan. He invited Mr. Modi. There was a possibility of start of a discussion, but India itself state-managed an attack in Pathankot for which they could not even prove. And Indian media itself and Indian leadership admitted that there was nothing. It's not on the table of controversies between Pakistan and India. When they mentioned Uri attack, Pakistan said that there should be an international investigation. India decided, no, we will decide, we are the victim, we are the judges, and we are going to give the verdict. And that did not work in favor of Pakistan. No public evidence came as to where Pakistan was involved, if some soldiers were killed because of their own negligence and lack of intelligence and preparedness by some few miscreants, 4 or 5. I think this peace process is a two-way process. Pakistan is ready for it. We are not willing for war. Pakistan is seeing a really prosperous future ahead. Like for the next 50 years, the situation, because of this China-Pakistan corridor, the new alliances in Karak, in Central Asia, and Pakistan's re-engagement through a different set of projects like pipelines from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and other countries are going to change the dynamics. And this is where India is not comfortable with, and that's why this entire noise. Pakistan never elected an extremist government, and BJP in India has been coming to power again and again.
Well, maybe one approach might be, if I'm looking for a solution here, and I'm throwing it in there, is looking at Kashmir, and one of the problems that it deals with is unemployment. So if we look at it through an economic lens or perspective, why can't India and Pakistan come to some sort of agreement where there will be rewards that the general population in Kashmir can feel? Because we know that this fuels also the unrest when there's such high levels of unemployment. Do you think that that's a way that both countries can approach the talks through an economic perspective to settle the political angle of it?
Is it for me, the question?
Yes, for you.
Yeah, I think as I said before, India and Pakistan need to work together to find a solution to the problem in Kashmir. But the kind of rhetoric, rhetoric Mr. Ahmad is offering, it doesn't really help. I mean, this kind of conspiracy theories and talking about the Indian government, I will read it again.
Mr. Whatever Saxena, this is not the rhetoric.
Right.
You need to understand whatever is on record that has to be said. Modi's background, the entire process of the way things have happened cannot be ruled out. Just don't blame me for your incompetence that you cannot grasp the reality of the situation in India.
Okay. I think these are very, very strong words, and I would not like to respond.
Don't try to lecture me on anything. This is not going to work like this.
Go ahead, Mr. Saxena, go ahead.
Yeah. What kind of government people of India elect in a democratic manner is
Just
their
give your
prerogative.
own perspective if you have any. Otherwise, don't start this finger pointing and point scoring.
I'm not trying to score a point with you here. I'm trying to provide a perspective here, and let's talk about that. Let's have a serious discussion. Let's not do this finger pointing. Okay, I just say what kind of government people of India elect in a democratic manner, and what are the policies of the government domestically. It's their prerogative, and anyone should not raise any doubts about it. So Mr. Ahmed made very serious allegations. I think this is not the forum to counter those allegations, to reply to them. I just want to reiterate that, again, that both the countries need to work to find a political solution to the Kashmir problem, and also the wider peace talks between the two countries to have better relations. This kind of rhetoric, these kind of allegations, these kinds of conspiracy theories, and talks of full-scale war is very, very irresponsible, and this is not really going to help. That's my final say on this matter.
Naveed Ahmed, go ahead.
Yeah, as I'm trying to say, and this gentleman doesn't want to understand, that without trust between the two governments, without enough capital invested in the peace process, which India has tried to terminate it quite time and again, things are not going to change. There is a domestic public that he is trying to feed into, and he has several elections to win. This is not going to help restart any kind of talks. Pakistan invited, the SAARC itself forum was dumped because India didn't want to send its foreign secretary to Pakistan. There are other examples as well. Peace process is a shared process. You have to bring both the sides on the table. And so far, United States, China, UK, EU has no such capital or strength or influence between the two countries that this could happen. And as far as the leadership in Delhi is concerned and the leadership in Islamabad is concerned, both are reactive. There is no doubt about it.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. That was investigative journalist Naveed Ahmed, who spoke to us there from Islamabad, and journalist and political commentator Shubhan Saxena spoke to us from Sao Paulo. That is for this edition of The Debate. From me, and the entire team in the capital, Tehran. It's goodbye.